good day, good evening, good morning. I don't know when you're going to see this, but yeah, so I'm making this video to just share my testimony, and I'm just gonna go get right into it. Uh, yeah, so I've been really, God's been putting it in my heart for a long time, for a very, very long time, and this week again, like it's just been emphasized, and even tonight through a fellow believer, God has just been impressing it on my heart. And like, I am a slow learner. Thank you for the grace and the mercy of God, because sometimes I don't listen so well. So yeah, and so I'm going to share my testimony for two reasons. Because God's been, like I said, God's been really been pressing in my heart for years now, and so I've written it down before, but I couldn't find it now. So I'm just going to speak from the heart. Hopefully, I remember everything. Um, and when I wrote it down, I only shared it with about, I think, one person. Yeah. So so I'm sharing because God has been speaking, and I want to be obedient. And the other reason is also, um, Revelation talks about how they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. And my in my and my desire, my heart, I wish for everyone, and this is my heart's desire, and I pray to God that all people shall be saved, especially my family. I've been praying for, and I do feel like we're living in, and not just very peculiar times. I do feel like we're living in the last days. Like, I know you probably have heard this, and like, guys, like, uh, scriptures happening right before our eyes. Like, we're living in the last days. So yes, I do. I feel like I need to. God didn't just save me for myself. I should be a witness, and this is me being obedient to God, and also being a witness for His kingdom, by sharing what God has done for me. So I'll be sharing some what I consider to be like very key moments in my life, like key events that took place, and I can only now see them, or those events, as key events. Like, looking back, that's the beauty of hindsight. So yes, I was born to a single parent. Like, I was born do you say that, like, I was born, like, yeah, so basically I was born to a single mom, and she and me and my sister. And yeah, so from a very young age, I I was living. So I think I was grade 4, when me and my sister, we went to we were supposed to go to a boarding school, but somehow we ended up at like a children's home. Oh, that's a long story. Maybe I'll tell it someday. But anyway, so we were supposed to go to a boarding school where my cousin was, but somehow we ended up at like a children's home. And then me and my sister, we stayed there for 1 year, and then the next year we went to the actual boarding school. Maybe one day I'll share that story. Yeah, so what's important is, like, from a very young age, I've always been like far from home, living in boarding schools. And another thing that's important here, I cannot remember how old I was, but I cannot remember the age, but I was very young, maybe younger than 12, when I made this is it might seem like irrelevant, but I'm just gonna put it here. We're not going to park here. I might come back to this point later, but I was very, very young when I spoke to God, and I told God, like, please, God, please protect me. Please, God, please help me. I don't want ever want to have sex out before marriage. I never want to have that. So I'm kind of made like a promise with God, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that happened. Um, but like my mom raised me and my sister Christian. We was raised Christian, like knew the Bible, Sunday school, we're doing the whole church thing, like everything. Another significant event was, I think I was in grade, I don't know grade, so let me just, I'm old, I'm old people, so let me just think for a moment. I was in grade 10. Yes, I normally forget this. Wow, today I remember. I was in grade 10 when this particular event happened. Like, so I was in a boarding school again, different boarding school. This time I was in high school. Uh, so me, so at this particular boarding school, so every Wednesday, we could go to the shops, like go into town and buy yourself some stuff with your pocket money your mom gave you. So me and two other girls, I have no idea how and whose idea it was, but the three of us, we ended up at some lady's house in this particular town. uh, we went to this lady's house, and I think we worshiped. And then I gave my life to Christ from this particular Wednesday. I never, we did this there at this lady's house. I never told anybody about that. Me and the other two girls, we never spoke about it. So yeah, say the prayer. I think it's say the prayer, whatever. So I did that, but I never spoke about it. Not even with the two girls that was with me. And so I can very, very well remember. So I've always read my Bible. I was always like the church going, like, the whole religious thing. I was always doing that. But the only difference now, after I gave my life to Christ, was now in the morning when I woke up and I didn't read my Bible, if I maybe didn't read my Bible. Actually, I never wanted to read my Bible. So the first thing that I did when I woke up, it's like I didn't want to read my Bible. I wanted to listen to music. So now, before I never felt guilty about it. Now I just had like overwhelming sense of guilt because I didn't want to read my Bible. I wanted to listen to music. Anyway, so that's the only difference in my life, that after I said the prayer, nothing else changed. I was exactly the same. Um, I have to say this though, like, so I always considered myself like a good person. Like I was a good child. Like I always used to tell my friends, like, I'm every parent's dream. Your mother wished she had a girl or a daughter like me. So I used to have that like mindset, like thinking I'm a good person. Like maybe I was, I don't know, because I always made sure, I always in the back of my mind was this. I knew my mother was working hard for me and my sister, so I always trying to be a good child, by being good. Don't give my mother trouble. Don't grieve her. And like that was just from my part. Not like my mom said anything, but just me. Always just trying to be like a good girl, good child. And from a young age also, I knew I wanted to go to study, because we were not rich or anything, but we were also not poor. Like I never had to like wonder where my next meal was gonna come from. But I always knew, like, I want to have a better life, like, and the only way for me to have like a better life was for me to study hard and to go to university and get like, my paper. Like I always knew I need to get qualified. I didn't know what I was going to study. Actually, I wanted to study psychology and journalism. So but I always knew, like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for this university. I don't know how am I gonna get in there. But I just knew I had to go study. That for me, that was a non-negotiable. So I was a really good student. Always worked hard. Oh, that was up until my last year of school. I always tried to be this good child, and that was up until the last year of school. My last year in high school, I wasn't so. I was just a mess, man. Yeah. So I had that. Say my little prayer. Nothing changed. That was grade 8. Grade 9. No, that was grade 10, guys. I don't know grades. I'm still in South Africa. We used to do the standards. So I'm still like with standards. Anyway, so it was grade 10. Grade 11, still a good student. I used to do sports, quite a decent athlete. Grade 12, oh man, I was just a mess. Whew. Grade 12, I started drinking, thought I was cool. Anyway, yeah, it's grade 12. I was still okay-ish, but I didn't do as well as I should have at school because I was just like doing my own thing and yeah, drinking, just a mess. Anyway, but still going to church and stuff. And then, yeah, so I'm from a Dutch Reformed church. So if you want to be a member of the church, you have to complete, I think at the time we had to do like 2 years of every Sunday you go and then it's like a Bible. I don't know how to call it. We study the Bible and we have to do like a little program or course. I don't know what to call it. I got that. After I finished, I was like a Sunday school teacher, good girl. And then I went to university. Guys, like, I'm trying, okay, let me make it short. Anyway, so I was always just very religious, thinking I'm a good girl and blah, 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 blah. I finished my studies, like, and when I was studying, I was told this all about the studies. Never at varsity, I never did the party thing. But after I finished, I got a job in Cape Town. Oh man, now my life really started. I got my paper, and I also was getting paper. So yeah, I did a clubbing thing, and like, yeah, weekend was my thing, just drinking, partying, blah blah blah. I used to be like, used to hate Cape Town, and then I started discovering the nightlife. Oh man, didn't used to go home and stuff. Anyway, so one of my mom's sisters, we are very close, but at this particular junction in my life when I was doing the clubbing thing and stuff, so I didn't used to go home as often, like, because I was a teacher, so I didn't used to go home for the holidays. I would go only home in like end of the year holidays, but in the middle of the year, like, didn't bother much because I was doing my 10 years old, living it up, you know. Anyway, so yeah. And then, so then my aunt got sick. My mom's eldest sister, which I was very close to, always been. Like, we all were just like, she was everybody's favorite auntie. So she got sick. And then, like, one day she got really sick and they was like, this is it, she's about to die. So I got in a taxi, left Cape Town, I rushed to the hospital, like, got there and she seemed to be okay. And like, so I told my family, like, and the doctors were like, this is it, she's going. Say your goodbyes. And I was there for the weekend, like, at the hospital with her. I had to go back to Cape Town for work. And then, so before I left, I told my family, like, somebody should, family member, one of us should always be with her 24/7. We cannot leave her there. Because if you're from South Africa, You will know what I mean, because our hospitals and our nursing staff, I'm pretty sure you get some decent ones. You always have the bad apples between the good. So I told them that, but then I left for the week. I went back to Cape Town, and that's when I started. Oh man, I started negotiating with God. I started negotiating real hard. I'm like, God, how I was so arrogant. I could negotiate with God. Imagine. I started telling God, God, just save my auntie's life. If you save my auntie's life, you can have my life. For even though I knew I was a good person, I knew I wasn't saved. And I always used to, and God was pursuing me, but I was always just telling God, like, no, I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want you. I want to live in the world. I want to drink. I want to party. I want to do what I want. So I always used to say that to God. But now when my auntie was dying, I'm like, boom, I stopped and I was like, God, you can have my life. And you know why I was always telling God all of those things? So I was telling God, like, no, I don't want you. You're boring. Because like I always used to have I had this perception, because it was a perception, not reality. It's a lie from the pit of hell, I can tell you that today. I always had to have this idea. Two misconceptions about Christianity. I always used to think, if I'm gonna be a Christian, I have to be good. And by now I knew I was not a good person. And the other thing, I was like, I don't want to be a Christian right now because I want to drink and I want to live. Because once I'm going to be a Christian, Christians are boring. My life is going to just be like no fun. I want to enjoy the world. So I was actively rejecting God. And like now here I was in need, desperately asking God to save my auntie. So I'm like, if he saved my auntie, then if he saves her life, then he can have my life. Man, I was so foolish. Imagine. Anyway. So I was like telling God this. And that holiday, because it was the June holidays by now. So I left. I didn't even went home. I went straight to this town where my auntie was in hospital. And like me and my cousins, I basically spent my vacation in hospital. So I will stay for 24 hours at the hospital, and my her son would come and stay for 24 hours. So we used to alternate like that, 24 hours, and then I will go home and sleep, and then he will come. So we did that vacation. Oh, my aunt was, anyway. And yeah, and then by the end of the vacation or something, they were like, because the doctors were like giving up, and I'm still like praying to God. And then so the doctor said like she can go home because there's nothing they can do for her. So they were sending her home, but actually not home, to the hospital closer to her home. And so yeah, we all went back. And then she went to the other hospital. And then it was the same thing. She went in hospital. So the night before I went back to Cape Town, because Monday I was starting work. So the Saturday, we like all of the family again, like around the bed. And this old lady, like born again, she was like, we should say our goodbyes, because like my auntie wants to say goodbye. Like she's not going to make it. Like this is it. She's dying. So we all were gathering that Saturday around the bed, like saying goodbye and doing the things. I can't even remember what we did. And then the Sunday morning, so me and my sister went back to Cape Town. The taxi came to pick me up from the hospital, and then we left back. That was the Sunday back in Cape Town. That Monday I remember very vividly, because I was busy marking my student scripts. I was sitting marking, and my sister was somewhere like on the bed or somewhere in the kitchen. I was busy marking because yeah, that's what teachers do during the holidays. I was even marking in that hospital bed. Anyway, busy marking. I remember I received the call. I picked up the phone like, and I just started crying. And my sister knew. She knew. I didn't even say anything. I didn't say anything to her. She knew what was. She knew probably. She knew. She knew. And I was just like sitting there at that table with the student script, like tears streaming down from my ears, crying. And I'm like, God, why? Because like I believed God could heal her. Like I think I was probably the only one, and I was like just bawling my eyes out. That was the Monday. The Wednesday, me and my sister, ding, 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 back home uh, to make the funeral arrangements and say goodbye to my aunt. Yeah, I'll stop here and then I'll do part two. Thank you.